When Ivan Demidov was drafted 5th overall in 2024 by the Montreal Canadiens, many were in disbelief that the uber-skilled Russian winger had fallen to them. So how did he fall to the Montreal Canadiens, and what did the Canadiens know that the other teams didn't? There are 7 key variables that led to Ivan Demidov becoming a Montreal Canadien. Variable number 1, the Russian factor and the contract uncertainty. At the time of the 2024 NHL draft, Ivan Demidov was under contract with SKA St. Petersburg until May 31st, 2025. So any team knew Demidov would be in the KHL for at least one more season after the draft, and possibly more. There was no guarantee that Demidov would not sign an extension in the KHL. The fact there is no current transfer agreement between the NHL and the KHL, an NHL team could not compensate a KHL team in return for letting their player go. Variable number 2, lack of live viewings by NHL clubs. Due to the Russia-Ukraine war, non-Russians without passports could not visit Russia in person to watch Demidov. Teams had to rely mostly on video scouting, which does not account for body language on the bench and the feel of the game in person. But wait, don't most NHL teams employ Russia-based scouts that saw Demidov live? Yeah, they do. But the Canadiens had a significant competitive advantage. That leads to variable number 3, the Bobrovs. The Montreal Canadiens' co-director of amateur scouting, Nick Bobrov, is Russian. The Habs did not have to vet the information of the Russian-based scout like other teams. The scouting boss was the information. And there's more. Nick Bobrov's father, Sergei Bobrov, has worked as a scout for SKA St. Petersburg for 16 years. Even more wild is Nick Bobrov was the director of North American scouting for SKA from 2011 to 2014. Nick and Sergei Bobrov both spent 3 years with the LA Kings from 2006 to 2009, before joining SKA. Both had hands in drafting 2-time Stanley Cup champion D-man Slava Voinov in 2008. So Bobrov had first-hand, trustworthy information from his father, a scout within Demidov's and Michkov's former organization. This allowed Bobrov to meet with Ivan Demidov on a couple of occasions, even spending time with his family.
I was fortunate enough to get there a couple of times and spend time with him and his family.
This relationship, in tandem with Ivan Demidov craving pressure-packed environments like Montreal, had Demidov begging to be drafted by the Canadiens.
And part of the reason he wanted to be in Montreal is because he loves pressure. You know, sometimes we ask kids whether or not they will be okay playing in the city, but he was begging for it.
Variable number 4, Demidov's 2 injuries. Leading up to the draft, Demidov dealt with 2 separate injuries. One knee injury where he crashed into the goalpost that sidelined him for 6 weeks, and a high ankle sprain in the MHL playoffs. While he was present at Dan Milstein's showcase in Florida just before the draft, he did not participate on the ice. It is possible the fact NHL teams did not get to witness Demidov on the ice was a disappointment for decision makers. The lack of a full, healthy season right before his draft year raised minor red flags regarding his durability for teams looking for a sure thing. Some, including myself, had concerns that his wide skating style and 10-2 technique could make him vulnerable to collisions with his knee. Thus far in his young career, those concerns appear to be irrelevant. Variable number 5. The philosophies and needs of Chicago, Anaheim, and Columbus. The teams drafting ahead of Montreal, Chicago, Anaheim, and Columbus had specific positional needs and philosophies with their respective picks. Chicago was picking second. They opted for a potential franchise right-handed defenseman in Artyom Levshunov. They loved his all-around game. But the Blackhawks still wanted Demidov badly as well. It was reported by Scott Power and Mark Lazarus in The Athletic that the Blackhawks nearly convinced Columbus to trade their 4th overall pick in 2024 in return for the Blackhawks' unprotected 2025 first-round pick, as well as the 2025 second-round pick. In the end, Pierre LeBrun reported it was close, but the Blue Jackets' love for Caden Lindstrom was too strong to accept, and Columbus declined. Anaheim was picking 3rd. The Ducks were navigating away from finesse players like Trevor Zegras, and GM Pat Verbeek prefers skilled players that also have a physical side. Seneke received a lot of flack from fans due to his rapid ascent in the draft rankings, but I ranked him 6th due to his combination of skill, hockey sense, and physical tools. Verbeek highlighted that they love Seneke because he could play any type of game you want. Verbeek spoke about their decision-making process.
Just so Beckett in general. We probably narrowed it down to 3 or 4 players, and then we had a really good discussion. There was other players that ended up getting pushed down for different reasons, and so near the end of the conversation, it really boiled down to 2, and then and it was a good discussion, and finally we reached a consensus on Beckett.
It is impossible to know who the second player the Ducks were considering at third overall, but Demidov was probably in that group of 3 or 4. Next, Columbus had the 4th overall pick. Don Waddell was on the record saying they had Lindstrom ranked 2nd overall. Quote, "We had him, Lindstrom, at 2 on our list. When we got to 4 and he was still there wasn't a whole lot of discussion." But why did the Blue Jackets have him ranked at 2nd?
He's a center iceman, which is, they're hard to come by, big centers that not only can score, but is very mean. He plays it very hard, so that kind of skill set with that kind of temperament, it's hard to go past those guys.
In the end, Waddell was looking for power, skating, and a center, and felt having Fantilli and Lindstrom 1-2 down the middle would set them success for years to come. That is why they ranked him higher and chose him above Ivan Demidov. Now, variable 6. The level of competition, MHL versus KHL. Ivan Demidov absolutely dominated the MHL, but scouts often find it difficult to project a player's ceiling when they are too good for their league. Demidov only played 4 games in the KHL, though most who viewed his 4 KHL games thought he outperformed fellow teammate that season, Matvei Michkov, who played his entire draft season in the KHL. However, due to the small sample size, there were lingering questions about why Demidov did not play more KHL games, and how his flashy, creative style would translate against men, and eventually, the tighter checking of the NHL. Though most who viewed his 4 KHL games thought he outperformed fellow teammate Matvei Michkov, who played his entire draft season in the KHL. NHL teams did view Ivan Demidov as a bit of a risky pick because of some of these reasons, some of these variables. And most believed that the Canadiens were in love with Ivan Demidov. So, the Habs had to play some poker leading up to June 28th. While Ivan Demidov was not present at the NHL Combine in Buffalo, he was present at the Gold Star pre-draft showcase on June 18th, organized by agent Dan Milstein. Curiously, neither Gordon nor Bobrovs were present at the event, though the Canadiens did have a scouting presence there. Then, 24 hours before the draft, Jeff Gorton met the media and played coy about their plans going into the draft, and in particular about Ivan Demidov.
It was good. He seems like a real good kid. He looks pretty fit, and we didn't have a ton of time with him. He was seeing a bunch of teams today, but pretty impressive guy, and his English was really good, and so it was nice to get a conversation going with him. But he seems pretty impressive.
Gorton admitted to the media that they had met with Ivan Demidov that day, and so had other teams. What was not publicly known was that Bobrovs had visited Demidov a couple of occasions during the season. It was, however, the first time the entire Brain Trust was able to speak with him. Jeff Gorton asked him,
"We're 5th overall, and you're still there. What, are we crazy if we don't take you?"
Yeah.
We're crazy, right?
Yeah.
And then he asked if he could be a franchise player, to which he responded,
Like a franchise player?
Yeah, I think, yeah.
In the end, Ivan Demidov became a Montreal Canadien due to 7 main reasons. Number 1, the Russian factor and concerns about his contract. Number 2, lack of live viewings and access to Ivan Demidov by other NHL clubs. Number 3, injury concerns in his draft year due to his knee and ankle. Number 4, the needs and philosophies of Chicago, Anaheim, and Columbus. Number 5, the fact he barely played in the KHL in his draft year created uncertainty about his translatability against better competition and men. Number 6, the relationship and intimate intel the Canadiens had about Demidov. Number 7, and finally, the shrewd game of poker the Canadiens played leading up to June 28th on draft day. And that's how Ivan Demidov fell to 5th overall and became a Montreal Canadien.
Unbelievable, it's like amazing feels.